120 Spirit Airlines grounded in a single night. At 3 in the morning on May 2, 2026, an entire airline stopped existing. The flights ended, the crews went home for the last time. Rows of bright yellow jets sat parked in the dark, each one worth more than most people earn in a lifetime, all of them going nowhere. And nobody is asking what happened next, because those planes didn't disappear. And by the time this is over, you'll understand why you will probably sit inside one of them one day and never know it.
The treasure chest. Spirit didn't file for the kind of bankruptcy where a company struggles and eventually recovers. This was the other kind, liquidation. It was a complete shutdown, with a court selling off everything the company owned to pay its debts. The timing of that last night was intentional. 3 in the morning was picked so every jet would be on the ground and every crew member accounted for before anyone woke up to discover their flights were canceled. Spirit Airlines is going out of business. The airline said early this morning that it has begun shutting down operations. It's also canceled all upcoming flights for regular people. That morning was a shock. Travelers arrived at airports across the country to find Spirit's yellow counters closed and the screens blank. Families in the middle of trips suddenly had no way to get home. Anyone with a ticket for the next week was told not to come since the phone lines were down, the website was offline, and the company was simply gone. Now to the shutdown of Spirit Airlines. The low-cost carrier died this weekend as it lived, with lots of frustrated customers, no one picking up the phones, and passengers scrambling nationwide. Imagine a parent who booked a cheap seat to attend a child's graduation, or a worker hoping to get home for a rare weekend off, checking a dead app at a gate that would never call their flight. Millions of plans disappeared when the lights went out. Spirit was the first major American airline in a generation to collapse like this, brought down by slow financial pressure that ended suddenly. The company's survival depended on cheap fuel, but when the war with Iran caused jet fuel prices to jump by about 70%, Spirit spent $100 million on fuel in just 2 months. A $500 million government bailout was supposed to help, but lenders reviewed the numbers and decided it wasn't worth the risk. And this was not Spirit's first brush with death. The airline had already filed for bankruptcy once before, less than a year earlier. And now to another bankruptcy filing by Spirit Airlines, its second in a year, the move coming during this major holiday travel weekend. And had spent the month since shrinking itself to stay alive, handing planes back to their owners and cutting its fleet from more than 200 jets toward roughly half that number. For 34 years, it had sold the cheapest seats in the sky, the bare fare that let people who could never normally afford to fly finally get on a plane. By the final night, it was a smaller, weaker version of the airline it had once been. From the outside, the collapse looked sudden. Inside, Spirit had been dying in slow motion for a year and a half, so the lights went out. But even after an airline shuts down, it can still be worth a lot. Court documents valued Spirit's planes and engines at about $13 billion. There were another $167 million in spare parts. Just its takeoff and landing slots at one New York airport were worth nearly $87 million. The airline was finished, but its assets were valuable, and everyone Spirit owed money to was already lining up. There was one problem. By the end, Spirit was so broke it couldn't even afford to sell its own assets in an organized way. The company told the court there was no money left to hold a proper auction. This meant the real owners of most of the planes didn't have to wait or compete with anyone. They could just come and take their planes before anyone else could claim them or before their value dropped. Most passengers have never heard of the law that allows this, but it is why most of these planes were already out of Spirit's control before the courts could even take stock of them. To see how this happened, you need to know one specific clause hidden in American law.
This is a part of American bankruptcy law that sounds boring but has serious consequences. When an airline fails, the companies that lease planes to it have 60 days to decide what to do. If the airline can't pay, those owners have the legal right to go directly to the airport and take their planes back. They don't have to wait behind other creditors or go through a long court process. They can simply take the keys and fly the planes away. The law was designed this way for a reason. You can't repossess a hotel in a few hours, but a jet can be started, moved, and flown to another country very quickly. Since planes are mobile and worth millions, the law allows owners to take them back fast before they lose any value. Most travelers never think about this when they board a plane. The airline usually doesn't even own the plane you're sitting in. Spirit owned very few of its jets. About 2 out of every 3 were owned by leasing companies with names like AerCap, SMBC, Sky Leasing, and Carlyle, many based in Dublin. These companies don't fly passengers themselves. They buy planes and rent them to airlines, similar to how landlords rent apartments. When Spirit collapsed, AerCap alone was owed more than $500 million. AerCap and a firm called Sky Leasing each held the leases on about 10 of the jets, with another 8 tied to SNBC and a long line of smaller companies splitting the rest between them. As soon as the airline shut down, the leasing companies acted quickly. This was a real rush, not just paperwork. Teams of inspectors, engineers, and pilots went to the 26 airports where Spirit's yellow jets were stranded. They were racing against time and each other. Since every day a plane sits unused, it loses value and costs more in fees. Crews boarded the planes to check logbooks, engine hours, and make sure they had the right jet. Then the planes had to be flown out quickly. But not just any pilot could do this job. They needed people who knew these planes very well and could move them safely. It turned out the best qualified people were the same people Spirit had just thrown out of work, and the company that hired them knew exactly what it was asking.
Nomadic Aviation was hired to move the fleet, and to fly the planes, they reached for the one group of people on Earth who knew every switch and habit of those cockpits by heart: Spirit's own pilots. Consider what that meant. Just days before, these people had steady jobs, salaries, uniforms, and a reason to get up early. Many had spent years working their way up, but that progress disappeared as soon as the airline closed. Seniority didn't transfer to other companies, so even experienced captains would have to start over. Some had mortgages based on paychecks that stopped overnight, and children who just learned the family income was gone. Plans ended at the same time as the airline. 17,000 jobs were lost at night, and most were not pilots. Flight attendants, gate agents, baggage handlers, mechanics, and many others who kept the airline running all faced the same uncertain future. Now, a few of the pilots were being paid one flight at a time to fly the planes they once worked on out to the desert, where most would be stored or dismantled. Bob Allen, who runs the company that hired these pilots, described the situation as a death in the family. He wasn't exaggerating. He said the work was a small mercy, providing some money to people who had just lost their jobs and offering something harder to describe. Some people simply needed closure. Imagine sitting in that cockpit, the same seat, the same checklist, the same plane you flew with passengers just a week ago. But now the cabin is empty and silent. You know that when you turn off the engines at the end of the flight, you will probably never fly this plane again. For many pilots, that last flight was their only chance to say goodbye. There were no passengers, no schedule, just a quiet trip across the country in a plane they had spent years flying, knowing the next pilot might be someone they would never meet, possibly at an airline in another country. Adam Giordano, one of the leaders of the operation, moved more than 20 jets in just 1 week, flying them from airports across the country to the Arizona desert. He even flew one himself, taking an empty Spirit plane from Philadelphia to Moriana. He was so busy with the work that he forgot to eat one day. In those first days, the crews were spread across 5 different airports at once, and on a single Thursday alone, 6 of the yellow jets lifted off and turned their noses toward the desert. Some of those jets were still flying days after Spirit officially stopped operating. The cabins were empty with no passengers on board. They crossed the country under new flight numbers that no longer belonged to any active airline. If you looked up that week and saw a bright yellow plane overhead with empty windows, You were seeing the end of an airline at 35,000 feet. All those last flights ended at the same spot, a place meant for the dead. Yet hardly anything that arrives there is truly dead.